This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. It's easy to get started. Just choose more or less on player stat projections. If you pick right, you could cash in. My favorite football player, and the only football player I know, and so by default, it's my favorite, is the guy who is getting married to Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, who I've understood is a tight end, whatever that means. So mazel tov to Travis. I am putting my money on him. With Prize Picks, cashing out is quick. They offer Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more. And Prize Picks even has Flex Pay, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the app today and use code SELLER to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code SELLER, CELLAR, to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Welcome to Live from the Table, the official podcast for the world-famous Comedy Cellar. I am here with Noam Dworman, the owner.
It'll be over soon. Go ahead.
You know what?
Go ahead.
People really don't like it when you interrupt me. We keep getting messages about that, and you don't listen. I am here with the owner of the ever-expanding, world-famous Comedy Cellar, Noam Dworman. I am the producer of the show. My name is Periel. And we have a very special guest today, Gregory Lyakhov.
Close, Lyakhov.
Close. Gregory Lyakhov is the youngest nationally syndicated columnist in the United States. It's impressive. He serves as a columnist for Newsmax, the Gateway Pundit, and Townhall Media, regularly contributing to major outlets such as the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, and The Hill. His work has appeared in dozens of other publications and has been cited
Dozens?
That's what it
That's
says.
at least 24. But go ahead.
Yeah,
That's what it
That's a lot.
says.
that sounds right.
Of other publications and has been cited by top institutions, including the White House.
Yes.
Is the White House considered a top institution?
In my books, the White House is, but I have been cited by Notre Dame and a few other universities for my work in the Supreme Court cases that are relevant to school choice, which is an area I tend to focus on.
And you're how old?
I am 17.
17. And you have homeopathic idiopathy.
No. He has
idiopathic
No.
It's a sleeping disorder, yeah.
Idiopathic hyposomnia.
idiopathic hyposomnia.
Do you want me to spell that for you?
That's not even the main issue.
So it means you sleep, once you wake up, you have trouble?
Yeah, I just sleep for all day. I could sleep. I could wake up at 12 and continue sleeping. It's amazing. I mean,
what's the most hours you could? I'm very tired. This conversation came up because I only slept 4 hours and 30 minutes last night. How long can you sleep consecutively?
Probably 18 hours. That's probably like a usual sleep. Like I could do it like without having any like side effects after.
Wow.
Do you have to take medication for this?
Yeah, I just started actually my medication, but this is not even my main health issue. I also have ADHD and OCD, which went undiagnosed for 16 years of my life. So I was a failing student. I couldn't read. I couldn't write. And only last year did I finally get diagnosed, and my entire life changed. I started writing, reading. And actually, the first book I read was by an author named Alan Dershowitz. I'm sure you're familiar, the lawyer.
The Alan Dershowitz?
The Alan Dershowitz.
Wait, let's just stop here a second. So you couldn't, when you say you couldn't read, obviously you could read.
I couldn't read more than a sentence.
But because you didn't have the attention span to read.
Yeah.
You know how to read, but you couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you couldn't, and you started taking medication.
Yeah, medication therapy and, just normal treatment like planners, everything like that for
But why were you
ADHD.
undiagnosed for so long?
Well,
Nobody took you
for a
to the
few-
He
doctor?
was sleeping
A
all
few
day.
reasons. No, for a few reasons. Well, number one, I don't have hyperactive attention deficit disorder, so
Just
it's very,
ADD, not ADHD.
and it's hidden because really when you're at home and you don't have a hyperactive ADHD, it's very hard for your parents to tell because they're not always with you when you're in school.
They thought you were just dumb.
Yeah, exactly. And
No, they couldn't have possibly thought that.
well, they didn't think I was dumb, but I was definitely the dumbest out of the bunch. But my school is who I really blame, for getting me undiagnosed. I mean, not getting me diagnosed earlier because, my teachers were the ones who were with me every day. My teachers were the ones who dealt with me on a daily basis, and they still didn't catch anything. And it's not because my school is bad. I think my school is wonderful. It's just public schools in general don't have a good system of diagnosing
So you were a
learning
SPED kid?
disorders. No, but I was failing. I was probably in between, somewhere between a normal and special education.
You're not supposed to say sped. That's what my kids call it. And that's like a pejorative slang, I guess. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you're getting canceled for that.
I didn't know.
I'm pretty sure if he's not canceled by now, that's not going to do it.
And was it? How about in math? Were you good at math?
Not particularly. It wasn't like my worst subject. My worst subject by far was like English and reading, but math, I would say I was a C student in math.
How did you feel? Did you always know that you were like particularly bright, but something was just not?
I don't believe I'm particularly bright. I don't believe in the saying particularly bright because I think what I accomplished is what anyone can do if they just have a passion for what I do, which is like politics, writing. That's my passion, and that's what I spent my entire life doing. So, but really, at a certain point, you have to understand that when I haven't been diagnosed for so long, it's kind of my norm. That's how I felt. So I thought it was normal for every kid to feel that way. And so I didn't see any issues with that. I just went along with it.
So you spent your whole life like in a cloud. You can't read. You can't, focus. And then you get some medication like Ritalin or something. And then the world opens up to you. And your first book is what, The Case for Israel by Alan Dershowitz or something like that? Like what?
Yes.
That's
You say,
amazing.
this is what I've been missing.
Actually,
yeah.
that's a funny story because my first book was originally supposed to be some Romeo and Juliet. I opened that book.
Not actually Romeo and Juliet.
No, the actual book.
Oh, the actual book?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And I opened that book. I was on vacation, and as soon as I opened it, I saw words that I knew I could never pronounce in my life. So I closed it, picked something else out of the bag, and I guess my sister was reading The Case for Israel and my dad, and that's the first book. That's how it all started. Now Alan Dershowitz, though, is my mentor. He is one of the, again, few people that took interest in me and my writing and my advocacy before everyone else did. So I deeply value his presence.
So we should say Alan Dershowitz, has been a friend of the show for a long time, and his son died recently.
Yes, it's very sad.
Who I had a relationship with, actually, his son, independent of Alan, not close friends or anything, but he was, I liked him very much, and I was very saddened, by this story. He was about my age. He was early 60s.
Yeah, 60, I think. It was a stroke.
Oh, stroke. He had some neurological issues as a child. I don't know if that's related.
Yeah, he had like some health issues. I'm pretty sure it was an ongoing thing. And when it happened, obviously it was still a surprise because a stroke kind of hits out of nowhere. So
Yeah.
it's very sad.
So, we I don't know what, I never know what you're supposed to say in these situations. It doesn't sound trite. I hate when people say, thoughts and prayers and stuff like that. But just our heart goes out to Alan, and I was very fond of Elon, and you're too young, but as a parent, one cannot imagine the pain of losing a child. All right. So having said that, now you can bash Dershowitz. So go ahead. you liked his book, The Case for Israel?
I not only liked it, it changed my life. I mean, after reading that book, I set on a path to advocate for, the victim and the person who doesn't get representation. And Dershowitz himself, he built his entire persona off advocating for the person who no one else wants to advocate for, whether it's
Like
O.J.
O.J.?
Simpson, Jeffrey Epstein, even Harvey Weinstein. And he advocates for these people not because he necessarily thinks they're good people. I know he
don't
doesn't.
conflate Israel with O.J. and Jeffrey
Of
Epstein.
course. No. And if you read the files, not the files, the Ghislaine Maxwell interview, she actually says that she has no knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein ever colluding with any intelligence agency, including Mossad. So just to clear that out of the way.
Yeah, thank you.
Now that you said it, I guess it's... But no, I read The Case for Israel, too. It's quite old book already, because my father...
2004, I believe.
No, I think even earlier than that.
Really? Maybe. I know it referenced...
I wish there was some technology that I carried around in my pocket. I'll tell you right now. And my father, it had to be 2004, because he so 2003. Oh. He died at the end of 2003. So my father was so impressed by this book. He bought many copies, and he gave them out. And has it stood the test of time?
Definitely. I mean, it's obviously not. You can't analyze the current situation in Israel with it, but it gives you a very good background. It's what I would recommend to anyone who wants to get, more knowledge into the conflict in Gaza. That's the first book I would recommend, because it gives you a history, and it's a very easy book to read. It's set up in a case as if it's a document, so it's very easy to read. There's no words that I wouldn't understand as a fifth grader, or anyone else wouldn't understand as anyone else. So it's a wonderful book, and I still have my first copy. It lays on my desk, and it's my prized possession, because that's the book that really started everything for me.
And he signed it for you?
He did not. He signed other books for me. He signed The Price of Principle. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. It's a wonderful book too.
He had another book called Chutzpah.
Yeah, that's my dad's favorite book from him.
Yeah, my father liked that book. Anyway, so let's stop with this. So okay. So we have some talking points from you. The war in Gaza and the broader conflict in Israel, including the claims of genocide and the rise of anti-Semitism in the United States. What is your take on that?
Yeah, so as you can tell from my hostage pin, I think my take in the entire war in Gaza is that it's a tragic situation on both sides. I think that it's a tragic situation for Israelis and for Palestinians, but definitely the Israelis are not the oppressor here. They are the victim in this case, and the only oppressor we have here is Hamas. And I think that's something we have to understand, because first it was coming from the left, but now I even see it on the far right with people like Tucker Carlson, Matt Gaetz, who are even Marjorie Taylor Greene, who are accusing Israel of committing genocide in this war that they have, which is completely, it's a false claim when the civilian to combatant ratio is approximately 1-to-1, which is the lowest civilian to combatant ratio in any other urban warfare.
Anybody who listens to this show knows I'm quite pro-Israel. But let me just ask some questions about some of these things that I actually have, sincere questions about. They say the ratio is 1-to-1, right? Do they really know what the ratio is?
No, because it's Hamas's numbers, not Israel's.
Right. No, Hamas's number is not 1-to-1. Hamas doesn't even identify combatants. Israel is inferring or reporting 1-to-1.
Yes.
And I'm quite uncomfortable with standing on that claim, because I'm afraid it may not turn out to be true. And if it doesn't turn out to be true, that will be... It could be because of Israel's lack of care, but it will also be in great part because of Hamas's strategy intended to make it impossible to get at legitimate targets without killing many civilians. So how confident are you that it's 1-to-1?
Yeah, so I am confident in this 1-to-1 ratio, and I'll give you a few reasons why. Number one, there's nothing to refute it. There's no other count other than by the IDF to count combatants separate from civilians, and that's a big
But how would they possibly know?
How would they possibly know? Well, if you're a combatant, then you're most likely targeted by Hamas. There's other factors you would know. If you're a part of Hamas, you would know that you're a part of Hamas. Therefore, Israel, with its intelligence force, should know. But that's a good question. And the issue is that most Palestinians in some way are associated with Hamas. Still, we see in June 2024, there was a poll that was out that showed 57% of people in Gaza still supported Hamas.
Well, support
as
is
the
not the
governor.
same thing as affiliated.
I know, of course. But my point here is that there's clear support within Gaza for Hamas. Therefore, there has to be a big group of people that are affiliated with Hamas in any way. When you are bringing weapons into your house and holding them for Hamas, that counts as becoming a part of Hamas. That doesn't count as being a civilian. You can't claim if you're a civilian if you're holding weapons. That's a big deal. And I find it hard to believe that people are so oblivious to the fact that there's weapons in their house, that Hamas is under their house, anything like that.
How would you characterize civilians who whose homes are being used to store weapons, and they do so because they're afraid that it's an offer they can't refuse? They're afraid if they were to try to resist the storage of these weapons, that they'd be killed or targeted by Hamas themselves. Would you count them as combatants?
That is a good point, and that's where the differentiation between civilians to combatants is very difficult to make, because I don't think anyone could answer that question, because technically, to Israel, that is still the enemy. That is still the target, because they're a threat to the IDF. And the IDF's number one mission is to protect itself, not to protect Gazans first, but to first protect itself, because it's the IDF. It's the Israel Defense Force, not the Gaza Defense Force. So to that, yes, it's a tragic situation, and there are going to be people like that, which are kind of in the middle of it, that are not fully civilians, but not fully combatants. And there's an understandable reason why they are holding weapons. They are going to die. That's just the truth. But it's not because the IDF is targeting civilians. It's because they are posing a threat to the IDF itself. So that's where I draw the line. That's why I think it's morally okay to have the IDF target those people.
Now, if the ratio, if you were to find out tomorrow that the ratio was worse than 1-to-1, let's say it was 2-to-1, you wouldn't stop supporting the war.
No, because of the IDF's precautions that it's taking. The reason why I bring up the ratio always in the conversation is because for a claim of genocide to actually be valid, we need for an actual genocide to be proven. And you can't have that without a claim of 1-to-1 ratio. And that means that if, let's say, tomorrow there's a civilian to combatant ratio of 1-to-5 or something like that, a much larger number, that would bring a different story. And there will be more questions raised. I would want to see more of what the IDF is doing. It doesn't mean I wouldn't support them, but I would want to see more reasons, because so far in this war, we have seen that the IDF has been killing more and more Gazan civilians, not because it wants to target Gazan civilians or because it's decreasing its ability to protect Gazan civilians. It's because of Hamas's tactics that are getting worse and worse. So I would want to question that.
Hamas's tactics are getting worse and worse?
Of course, they're the more civilians that are either holding weapons, or the more Hamas is embedding itself within civilians, which it has been proven to do more and more, specifically because of the IDF's strategy of cornering Hamas.
Okay, this is my question.
Yeah.
We're 2 years into this war, and 60,000 people are dead. How is it that Hamas is still such a robust force that they're at the peak of their tactics here?
Yeah.
Aren't they?
They definitely aren't at the peak of their tactics, because we have seen that Hamas got significantly weaker just by the fact that so many of the Hamas members died. But what we have seen is the IDF has been really going on a stop and go mission. And what I mean by that is that it fights, and then it stops. Just like a few weeks ago, I believe even last week, the IDF announced that it will continue the offensive again. But before that, it stopped. So it's basically giving time to rebuild. It's giving Hamas time to rebuild and regroup, go back into the areas that the IDF already kind of cleared, and that just poses more issues. It doesn't mean that there's, Hamas is right now so powerful. No, it means that because of its tactics and because of the international pressure Israel is facing, it needs to be more careful than ever right now to make sure that the amount of civilians that are in Gaza right now that are being killed because of this war are as low as possible. And we saw under the Biden administration, for example, which played for most of this war. The Biden administration was there since this war began up until January. And they have criticized Israel a lot for their actions, whether it's in Rafah or Gaza City. And that imposed a lot of pressure on Netanyahu to kind of do this stop and go initiative, which hasn't been effective because he had to stop, then Hamas regroups, and then they try again, but it doesn't work.
Are you worried that this may end up all not working? Like, how confident are you that there's a positive outcome at the end of it? Because the worst case scenario, we said this actually on day one, that it'll be hard to judge the war until it's over, because if they kill all these people and then 2 years from now we wake up basically with the same status quo as when it started, that won't make it a genocide, but it'll make it a catastrophe, you know, beyond the catastrophe it already is. Just the notion that all these people might end up dying and there isn't actually something, you know, to show for it, even from the Israeli point of view, like that we have a future in some way now where we didn't prior. How worried are you about that?
Yeah, I think that's a big concern, and it's also a concern to see how fast this war is going to end, because right now we have the Trump administration in power, which is basically allowing Israel to do what it wants. It's not really pressuring Israel in any significant way, as Biden was. It's not like threatening the weapons from Israel. It's not threatening any sort of thing like that. So that is good. That means that Israel is going to be able to do what it wants in the war. But let's say this war continues after the Trump administration. I find that very hard to believe that it would actually continue for another 4 years, and that would be devastating. But even if
they've had 8 months,
that is true.
It's a long time.
But also, the Netanyahu before last month was more concerned with Iran, because Iran was posing a huge threat to Israel, and the Trump administration was also being involved in that. So I don't think it was a full 8 months that they had for this, but I agree with you, it was a lot of time. But in general, it's always a concern that Hamas can regroup and rebuild, and the only way to stop that is to make sure that Gaza is either taken over by some sort of nation. It cannot be a ruled nation, a self-governing state, because obviously when that happened in 2005, Hamas got elected, and that ended everything with Israel. And also what has to happen is Israel has to be very good with making sure that they separate, as you said, the civilians from combatants, to make sure that no one is kind of mixed in the pile, because what could happen is that there are civilians who will, with the same education as they're getting now from Hamas, which is a lot of propaganda, they will just either create their own terrorist organization, or whenever eventually they get a new state, they will regroup and another Hamas will form. That is always a concern.
How worried are you about the accusations that Netanyahu is motivated not simply by Israel's interests here, but by his own personal political and interest in avoiding prosecution, things like that?
So,
do you think there's any truth to any of that?
I disagree. I don't, because simply I ask, what is the other option for Netanyahu? There's no other option for him, because the steps he has taken in the war, none of them has been explicitly anti-Gazan civilians or anything like that. He has made it an effort to defend Gazan civilians, and definitely right now he's not concerned about his popularity in Israel. He is very popular, despite the reports.
No, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, of course it is. The majority of Israeli civilians still support Netanyahu by a good margin, and if they didn't,
he wasn't very popular before the war.
Well, what do you mean? Well, what do
you mean? You said he was popular.
Let's describe what I mean by very popular. So Donald Trump, for example, I think he is popular because he has over 50% of the votes. That's what I mean. So he would be elected again.
But Netanyahu didn't have over 50% of the votes.
Well,
he formed a coalition.
Yes, but he still got elected. And if he didn't, then he would have gotten through the parliamentary system. He would have had to either step down, or the parliament would have called another election. So he's clearly very supported by the right, and a balance that he has to do, which I think is what you're referring to. He has to balance the entire situation with the hostages, which is very, very much a big talking point for Israel's left, because Israel's left is all about stopping this war and getting back the hostages. And he has to balance that with the pressure from the right, which is just to eradicate Hamas.
But hasn't he also lost people like Gallant, who was his defense minister, not a left winger, and Benny Gantz? I mean, I wish I knew more about this, but it's clear that you can't just say that anybody who thinks that he's not conducting the war in the wisest way, is just a political left-wing opponent.
I agree with you to an extent, because I asked what is the other option, and the other option they proposed was to either create a ceasefire, create a deal to get the hostages back. But again, I want the hostages back as much as anyone else does, because I think it's cruel what they're undergoing. But it's the hostages. If let's say we are just focused on that, and if that's our number one mission in this war, which for the Israeli left, much of it is, their number one mission is to get the hostages back and to create peace. If we are just focused on that, then we're going to have another October 7th in a few years, as soon as Hamas regroups. There's very little balance here, and that's the difficult thing. We can't both have the hostages or all of them back or secure their safety 100%, and eradicate Hamas, because Hamas doesn't want to be eradicated, and Hamas doesn't want, obviously, to give up the hostages.
Something you want to say?
I have, yes, but not about this particular subject.
About his idiopathic narcolepsy?
Also, no.
Yeah, so I'm more worried than I've ever been about this. I just hope it turns out. I mean, it's not turning out well as it is, and
I don't believe there's ever going to be a good option. There's no good option here. It's two bad options, but one of them is safer than the other, because one of them protects Israel for some time in the future, and the other one poses a direct threat back to Israel. So it's a very hard thing to balance emotionally, morally. But the reality is that if we don't eradicate Hamas, if we don't make that our number one priority, no matter what it takes, then they're just gonna come back again.
What do you want to say, Periel?
I wanted to talk about you gallivanting around in a high school wearing an Israeli flag and a hostage pin. And I was really curious as to, I mean, that seems like a pretty bold and brave thing to do these days. I have a 12-year-old who, we were just in California, and a little kid who was probably like 7 or 8 said they were talking about like what soccer teams they like, and the kid said, well, I don't know, Ronaldo or Messi, one of them likes Israel and the other one likes Palestine. And he said to my son, well, I like the one who likes Palestine because I hate Israel.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested. This is something that's really concerning to me.
Of course.
And also the horrible murder that happened today in Michigan, which was
Minnesota.
Sorry, excuse me,
Minneapolis.
Minnesota. Thank you.
Yeah.
Which seemed to be like also infused with a whole lot of kill all Zionists.
Yeah. So just to answer your first question, which is how I handle it in school, I'm very lucky in that my school is actually in a neighborhood where there's a big Jewish community, and that's where I live. It's
Don't say where you live.
Yeah, I know.
Is it a private school? Or?
It is not a private school; it's a public school, but everyone is there very pro-Israel.
Said that before, there's a public school.
That's right.
Yeah. Everyone there is mostly pro-Israel, but my main issue is not from my school, because again, my school is pro-Israel, but my main thing is from online, from my articles, because again, I reach like 3 million people for my articles a weekend. So I reach a lot of people, but with that comes a lot of hate comments.
Yeah.
And that's where I get most of my hate comments for being a Zionist, everything like that. Even, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Brandon Straka. He's the founder of the Walkaway movement. He's one of my mentors too, and we organized some rallies to rally against Zohran Mamdani, who looks like he may be the next mayor of New York City. And even there, like from the right and from the left, I see again Israel hating people who call Jews like the people who control all the money in the world, like all of this. And really, I am immune to it because I've been dealing with it from my articles and everything. So for me, I still shake the hands of people who say that, because to me, if we don't have diplomacy or respect for one another, then we don't have anything. But I could understand why it scares a lot of people. And I've been in New York City, for example, just a few weeks ago, where people were wearing kayefas like wrapped around where you like ski masks, basically, where you can only see their eyes.
Keffiyehs?
Keffiyehs, yes. That's the name. Yeah, where you can only see their eyes, and they started like pointing at me, following me, and everything. I was wearing my Israel pin, hostage pin. So like those experiences are obviously scary, but again, when you're like living in this world, it's not surprising, and it doesn't like scare me anymore.
Are you afraid that that you could just get carried along in the support of whatever it is that Israel says is their necessary policy, such that you would end up supporting a policy which was ill-advised, and in retrospect you will regret? Can you imagine yourself breaking with Israel?
Yeah, so I right now no, because I am morally connected to it. Because I'm Jewish, it's my state.
But it doesn't matter. That doesn't make their policy.
Yes,
wise.
that doesn't make their policy wise. That doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with everything Israel does. For example, even Netanyahu, I have a lot of criticisms for him.
Like what?
For his judicial review policies that just came in about a year into the war, I believe, or 6 months into the war. I believe that number one, it should have never happened during the war, and I believe that those policies were also not necessarily good or beneficial.
What's about the judicial reform? That was before the war.
No, that was before the war, and then he started pushing it during the war.
Wait, I'm not done with this anti.
Okay.
I really want to hear what you have to say to like younger kids who are experiencing this. I've heard so many stories.
Can I ask you one more follow up on this? Then you can get to that, because I don't keep back. Because I'm gonna have to come back to this.
All right, so finish though.
What do you think about the way he's been handling the issue of food aid to the Palestinians?
Yeah. So, well, I did a lot of research into this exact issue, and Israel itself gave over 1 billion tons of, 1 million tons, not 1 billion, 1 million tons of aid into Gaza, which is an insanely high amount. Not only that, but the UN and groups like Amnesty International have been, from the very beginning of the war, criticizing Israel for creating a famine in Gaza. The latest report, which was not recently, the latest report was in June or May of 2025, I believe, said the famine was imminent, but it also said that there was no actual famine in Gaza.
Yeah, but what about today?
Yeah, exactly. So today, what we have in Gaza is that the food, the aid in Gaza is actually being increased, and that's because of a new organization made by Israel and the United States to deliver aid, especially to Gazans too.
Why is it being increased if it's been adequate?
Well, because it hasn't always been adequate to the civilians, to the Gazan civilians, because Hamas has been stealing all of it. It's been proven.
Okay.
It's been proven. So, do I think so?
So I don't listen.
Mhm.
I mean, I just want to get it right. I don't think it's been. On the one hand, yes, if Hamas is not stealing aid, then and there's hunger and famine, then Hamas should be hungry and experiencing a famine, and I don't think anybody thinks Hamas experiences. So, to some extent, obviously, Hamas is able to prioritize its receipt of aid, whether to call that stealing or, I mean, they're in charge. So, I don't know.
Well, it is stealing, and let me tell you why.
But we've also seen these articles that come from people within the Israeli IDF saying that there's not a lot of evidence of a systematic Hamas theft of aid. Now, I don't know how to feel about those things, but I just feel that anybody listening to this will say, "What do you mean? How come you're not questioning about this?" So I want to make sure you have to respond to that.
This is a very good response. And the truth is that there is a lot of proof of Hamas stealing aid. There's like not only videos. I don't go by videos because I don't believe that's a holistic review.
It's gonna be one-off.
Yeah, exactly. But what we actually see is that the IDF has published numerous reports, and obviously it's coming from the IDF. But again, you have to understand that there's not many other groups in Gaza.
What does it mean to be stealing aid? In other words, they're stockpiling so much aid?
No. That's not what it means. The reason why Hamas is stealing aid is not because it needs the aid. They can't steal as much aid as they have just because they need it. They would be extremely obese right now. But the truth is that what they're doing with this aid is they're selling it, and that's how they make their money. They make a lot of money through that, and this is why they are still in power, because they get to sell aid.
But if they're selling it, then it's being fed back. So then why are people people hungry.
Because
They
people,
can't
not
afford
everyone
it.
can have money. Not everyone has money in Gaza. It's only the very.
You see, this is the thing, and people. So you're saying people who buy it don't share it. I mean, as someone who's obviously, as I'm repeating myself, very pro-Israel, there is a certain aspect of the pro-Israel argument that I think is flimsy, only in the sense that people like you repeat it, and I don't know that it's not true, but you don't know that it's true either, and you're taking a leap of faith that it's true. I fear that there's tremendous rank incompetence going on this issue. I fear that Netanyahu threw a bone to Ben Gvir and these other guys because he thought, oh, there's plenty of food there anyway. Let me just do what they want. I think it was a huge mistake to put Israeli fingerprints on anything having to do with aid. They should have let anybody who wants to bring aid in, bring it in. You want to drop it, drop it.
Well,
Even
what
like-
was happening with that was that they were dropping aid that was
Doesn't
going
matter.
to Hamas.
If they steal it, let them steal it. The war is not going to turn on whether Hamas had enough food to eat. That was not. I mean, as far as I understand, military, matters. It's very hard for me to imagine that this was a pivotal issue that was going to decide the war. But on the flip side, having this go so wrong is one of the only things that could have happened to Israel that they may not be able to recover from. They fucked this aid thing up so badly. This shooting of people reporting to get food when they took control of everything. And to me, although I don't want to criticize Israel in front of the non-Jews, I know this whole dynamic. I also don't want to, have my words thrown at me 5 years from now and saying, you said this, because you couldn't muster up the courage to say otherwise. Nothing I'm saying means that Israel's a bad guy in this war. Nothing I'm saying says that I think that Israel shouldn't be fighting Hamas. But it seems to me pretty clear they fucked this aid thing up.
Now, let me respond to
No.
that. Let me respond to
And then
that.
she could talk about
Yeah.
her high school thing or whatever she wants.
First off, I think it's important to mention that giving aid to Hamas, or if Israel just didn't touch the aid to Hamas and Hamas would steal it, as you mentioned, that would be very bad because it would be empowering Hamas by Hamas having the ability to sell that aid. Selling aid gives Hamas money. Money equals weapons, and weapons equal Israel destruction. So that is a big deal of why Israel had to control some aspect of the aid. Not only that, but
Who
Israel.
are they buying weapons from now?
What do you mean? Iran sells weapons to.
Iran's not bringing weapons into Gaza now.
So how do you think weapons got there in the first place?
They're there already, but I'm saying if there's some big smuggling operation coming into Gaza now, Israel needs to take care of that.
I agree with you on that part, but we have to remember that if Hamas did not buy any weapons during this war, then it would not have this power to.
I don't mean to interrupt, but this is the problem. Sometimes you have to look at something that's right before your eyes and say, listen, yeah, I get it. I might have even made these same decisions, but obviously something's gone wrong here.
Well,
obviously, with the whole world saying that Israel is starving these people.
It's not the whole world.
Even Trump makes remarks about it from time to time.
Well, look, again, let me repeat, that situation in Gaza is not good. I don't believe it's good. I think it's horrible. It's a war. And in a war, you may, there's a lot of, it's horrible on the people. I believe that. But when we have organizations that have systematically criticized Israel for their entire existence, like the UN, like Amnesty International, then yes, we're going to have those organizations criticize Israel in this case. But also, we have to understand that there has been so many inconsistencies in their arguments. Like you brought up the shooting in when there was aid being given, and I think that's terrible if that actually happened, but that's also could be a one-off situation, exactly like Hamas stealing aid one time through a video.
Gregory, don't become a cheerleader. Even the people in the right, even the people you support, even people make mistakes. They fuck up. They get arrogant. They get, one of the things I've always worried about is that, as I've joked many, many times, the first time Barack Obama dropped a drone somewhere in the Middle East, he probably weighed it. and thought again and thought again, probably trembled a little bit, maybe even choked up a little bit when he had to tell Michelle about the decision he had to make. I ordered, a drone strike, and I killed women and children, 7 years into his administration, Mr. President, we need that authorization. Can't you see I'm watching the game? Do what you got to do. Like, leave me alone. Like, you become so inured to these terrible
Yes and
things.
no.
So what are you suggesting?
I'm saying that after 2 years of war, you have to worry that the people in charge are less carefully weighing every decision that has people's lives in the balance than they were at the beginning of the war.
Well,
Because it's like you're adding more numbers and more numbers. It's just human nature. And somehow this aid thing has gone wrong. And listen, people like Habib Retagor are saying it, very strong pro-Israel people. Even the Free Press ran an article about this, right? So I'm just advising against becoming a cheerleader, because it somehow it's based on the assumption.
How does it get
that the
fixed?
people,
yeah, what is the other option?
other option of what?
Like, what should Israel do?
That's another conversation we could talk. We should talk about that.
Well-
I'm saying just don't. I just wish people would show the flexibility to understand that something seems to have gone wrong here, and the party line explanation is belied by what we're seeing. Like something went wrong. They say, we're going to take control of the aid, we're going to distribute it, and it's not working out. And in retrospect, I think we probably all agree it was better never to have gone down this road, unless
I
Hamas
disagree.
is surrendering now because they can't sell their aid anymore, which I don't think is the case.
No, but what is the other option for Israel? The other option would be to empower Hamas by giving them funds, and that is dangerous.
By giving them
funds, money, and giving aid to Hamas or letting them sell is not an option on the table, at least for anyone who believes that Hamas should be
So
eradicated.
you're saying this, but I don't think you actually have any knowledge of the amounts of money or whether this actually is a significant.
Look at the UN reports. Yeah. The UN itself, the most anti-Israel organization, published a report that proves Hamas has been stealing aid. There's no one that doesn't deny it.
I'm not saying not stealing aid. I'm saying that has the what's that expression? Is the squeeze worth the juice worth the squeeze? Like yes. I if you only want to look at the fact that they may have less money now, and you don't want to look at the cost of all that, yeah, I agree. Anyway, what do you want to say about high school? I'm worried about it.
I'm worried about it.
I don't mean to cut you off.
No. I just like the conversation.
Yeah. No, I'm worried
I feel
about
the same
it.
way as you, but she wants to talk. Go.
Well, I don't
I'm
have
teasing.
to.
Go ahead.
No, it's whatever is going on is terrible, and obviously the civilians need to get food. It's a horrible thing. There's certainly no argument there. Okay, but to shift gears for a second, all of this anti-Israel and anti-Jewish propaganda, which is pretty much the same thing as far as I'm concerned. I think that this idea that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism is complete bullshit. I've been saying that since October 8th, before Israel set foot in Gaza. That the onslaught of Jew hatred and anti-Semitism was not created on October 7th. And it seems to me that there's become, from personal experience as well, a very hostile environment for anything Jewish or Israeli. And so I'm curious as to how you navigate through it, which you started to say, and also what you have to say to other kids who perhaps are not as bold or empowered or knowledgeable as you are, because there's a lot of misinformation. And I don't think it's really dangerous. It is really dangerous. And what I started to say is that, as evidenced by what just happened, this tragedy in Minneapolis with these two kids that were killed, the person who killed them had written, Israel must burn and, had like pages and pages of anti-Jewish and anti-Israel nonsense, and probably what he knew about it could fit in the fucking palm of my hand.
Yeah. So, well, that's a wonderful question. Well, first off,
Thank you.
To your question was also wonderful. Well, first off, to start off with how or what I would give, the advice I would give to other people of how to deal with it is this. Number one, you don't have to be like me. You don't have to be in front of the camera or whatever saying that you're pro-Israel. I don't think that should be anyone who doesn't think they're strong enough. They're probably not. It does require like immunity to it, and it's also important to understand that there's smaller steps that you can take to understand the situation better. And as you said, you don't want to be just a person who says, "Oh, I'm pro-Israel," but not really understand what that means. You don't want to not understand the situation in Gaza. You want to read, Al Jazeera and the Times of Israel and the Jerusalem Post. I don't know if they're very. Yeah, okay. So you want to read everything, and that's the most important thing, to be as knowledgeable as possible. And if you yourself are knowledgeable, and if you could spread that knowledge to your friends and to the people who you care about, that is more of an impact than probably anything else you can do. And that doesn't require a lot of work. It's just reading an article maybe a day. And it also doesn't require being in public and being scared that you're going to be attacked by other people. That, I think, is a very important thing to do. And that goes on the left and on the right. I think that people who are pro-Israel and people who aren't pro-Israel, they should all do that. And as long as you have an educated stance, as long as you can back up your opinion and you read everything, then I consider your stance valid, even if you don't agree with me. And now going a little bit further into all of this, hatred and what we saw today in Minneapolis with a shooter who was, it just came out that the shooter actually was transgender. So assuming that they went through a lot of mental health struggles, they decided to shoot innocent people, almost 20 people, 2 people dead, 2 children, I believe it was 10 and 8, and then 17 injured. Mm-hmm. They decided to carry out like that. And a big reason that kind of made them carry it out is because of the propaganda that we see online. That's a big reason, because you don't have to be I'm not saying that we should blame people who spread misinformation. I think that the real reason he had the ability to carry it out was because he had a mental health struggle or something like that, and he was deranged. I think that's the real reason. But because of this propaganda, this is where we see that he actually, clicks the trigger, if that makes sense. And we see that online.
But what does that have to do with hating Jews and having Israel? This person is, I always say, it starts with the Jews, but it never ends with us. This has nothing to do with Israel. I mean, it's nonsense, right?
Yes and no. We see that, as you mentioned, it doesn't ever end with the Jews. We see that, and that's a big reason why I think he targeted a Christian church. His mother also worked there, so
oh wow, I didn't know that.
It just came out. So his mother also worked there, so it was a pretty easy target, if you understand. And also, number one, he was very anti-religion. He even wrote on the magazines, "Where is your God?" A disgusting phrase. I mean, he also was obviously anti-Trump, and he wrote "Kill Donald Trump" or something on his magazines.
I saw that too.
And obviously anti-Zionist, anti-Israel. So these are all these are all ideas that the Christians are very pro-Israel overall if they're religious, and these are ideas that they hold, so it would be understandable why he targeted them specifically. And again, it's because of the hatred we see online. When we call Donald Trump a fascist or a tyrant, when we see that, yes, someone who is already going through mental health struggles, they will take matters into their own hands. When we see that Israel is an apartheid state that's committing a genocide and it's the evil player in the world, yes, someone will take it in their own hands to, deal with that and to affect their supporters or the people who they think support Israel. And obviously, when all of this kind of compiles, it goes into a big issue, and that's why we saw people I forgot his name. I believe it was Tim Cook, the person who attempted to kill Donald Trump. We saw him same exact situation because, again, he's feeding into this hatred. It's because we need to end this culture of toxic language. Like, even if I don't agree with someone, it doesn't mean I call them a tyrant or anything like that. That is how people get hurt. That is how, a banana republic
There's
gets
a difference
created.
between language and inciting violence.
Of course.
Right?
Of course. But also, we can't say that language doesn't have anything to do with inciting violence, because in this case it obviously did. I don't believe that this person would have targeted the same people or would have targeted anyone if Donald Trump wasn't portrayed as a tyrant by the left, or if the Zionism wasn't portrayed portrayed as an apartheid ideology or something like that. I just don't believe he would have. I know he wouldn't have targeted the same people, and he probably would have maybe taken it a different way. Obviously, I don't think this is the main cause of the reason why he initiated this shooting. I think that the main cause was because of mental health issues, which is a separate discussion.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of people who have mental health issues that don't go around murdering children, right? What do you have to say about all this?
I don't know. I think that
You want me to read you some of the things he wrote on the magazine?
Sure. I think that correlation is not causation, and it's just a very unreliable endeavor to say that the reason a mentally ill person killed people was caused by the crazy, hateful things that they repeat at the time they're killing people. The notion that there would be no violent murders of this nature if only these people were not able to hear, incendiary language. I do believe that it's probable that some percentage of these, it's like, this reminds me of, it's probably true, it might be true that the rise in hurricanes in total is a cause of global warming. Let's just stipulate that there's a good likelihood that that's true. But in any particular hurricane, when they say, it's global warming, they have no way of knowing whether any particular hurricane came from global warming, because we've always had hurricanes, right? So that's like, so does the language contribute to violence in the overall? Yeah, it probably does at some point. Can you say that about any individual shooting? No, you really can't.
Exactly.
And so I don't know.
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And that's why just in general, if we end this hatred for the political left or the political right, if we end it, then that will benefit us greatly, because I don't believe, as you said, that this single shooting may have not happened if the shooter did not believe in these things or was not exposed to this. I believe that he could have still carried out a similar attack, maybe towards a different demographic, but definitely what would have happened if there was no hatred in the world, definitely there would have been some impact on the shooting there in a positive way. If there was, this radicalism that we see today of the political right and the political left. So to an extent, I agree with you. I think to an extent that it had some contribution, but it's not, you can't say it was directly caused by that.
Let's not get started on the access to guns.
Okay. So
6 million wasn't enough.
At least thank heaven for small favors. At least he's acknowledging 6 million.
Yeah, that's
usually they deny it. You admit there's 6 million.
Burn Israel.
That seems pretty tame after the 6 million. Not enough.
McVeigh and Breivik.
McVeigh is for Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Saying that this was for the children, which then but
Periel, you're reading the rantings of a crazy. I mean, I'm not saying it's not worth knowing. Of course, it's worth knowing. But,
I mean, there are lots of crazy people that don't say calls to Israel and to destroy Jews.
Okay. Just pray to your God that tomorrow some crazy Jew doesn't shoot up a mosque, which has happened, by the way. And then we have to try to, you have to try to get out from under your arguments. So, we'll see what happens. I don't know. Donald Trump's is in yours. We got to get this going to end soon. Donald Trump's actions, such as the big beautiful bill and his American flag executive order, often mischaracterized as a flag burning ban when it is not. It is not a flag. I don't know about this. It's not a flag burning ban. I see people like Matt Walsh kind of like all of a sudden saying they're all for flag burning bans when they said flag burning bans were the worst thing in the world.
Well, Matt Walsh, all respect to him. I mean, I don't really. Okay, I'll talk about Matt Walsh again.
No, you've seen that going around Twitter today.
Yeah, of course. Well, let me tell you the person who I am influenced by, and that's Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is the person I want to be like when I grow up. I think he's a genius. He used to be the youngest nationally syndicated columnist before I was, until I beat him by 1 year.
You play the violin?
No, I don't.
Can I say Ben Shapiro? I do like. I think Ben Shapiro is quite a bright guy and gets painted unfairly. But he did say one dumb thing. He said that hip hop is not really music. And I said, "Oh, shut up, Ben." Anyway,
I'll not tell you my opinion on hip hop. Then.
No. So, what do you think about the flag? Tell me about the flag.
So I'm going to reiterate something that he said, and I agree with it. And that's, if you look at the executive order and you read it, you realize that Trump's claim that it's actually a flag burning ban is really just not correct.
So what does it say?
So the executive order says that if the act of flag burning provides imminent harm or is imminent can be imminently harmed by I don't know, in a rally or something. For example, if you yell fire in a movie theater, that could provide imminent harm, right? So that would be a reason to arrest you, and the DOJ would prosecute you. Remember that the executive branch has no power to create a law.
Ben Shapiro supports this?
Of course. Read the executive order.
Well, I mean, isn't it already illegal? I speak out my ass here, but isn't it already illegal?
Yes.
To do things which will cause imminent harm?
Yes, that's why this executive order.
Right. So why do they need to narrow it to flag burning?
I am with you on that one. I have absolutely no idea. I do not think that this executive order will actually provide anything. I think it was a political stunt. However, it's not a ban on flag burning if you read the executive order, because
it softens the ground for prosecutions. So listen. This is one thing I disagree with my father on, because my father came from a generation where he just could not accept flag burning. And I think by the end I finally convinced him. What can you imagine some black people during Jim Crow? They burned the American flag as a way of expressing themselves. How could you be in a country that honors free speech against that? And he said, I guess, but his heart was never really in it, because as an immigrant, he just could not cotton to flag burning. But having said that, when there is a law which specifically mentions flag burning, it chills that expression. As a person who wants to express himself, maybe by burning a flag, you are now somewhat less likely to do it, because you understand that there's a minefield that you're now going to have to walk through, which is this statute.
Yes.
Which you don't worry, but I don't think I really want to take that chance.
Well, that's the whole purpose.
And that's a cost. That's a price to pay.
Well, that's the purpose of the executive order, to make people think twice before burning the American flag.
That, I would say, is an illegal intention in a free country.
Well, I disagree. I think that well, again, if we look at the wording and what this executive order is, again, targeting, it's nothing new than what it has been in the past. Because, again, the executive branch has no ability to create a new law. Congress would have to create a new law. And if a law passed that, I don't know, burning the American flag would be illegal, that law would probably get struck down by the Supreme Court, because obviously the First Amendment in Texas versus Johnson held that flag burning was
protected.
Yeah, protected in the First Amendment. Now, I think it's very fine, and I think it's okay for the Trump administration to create this executive order. Now, you kind of are alluding to a little bit here that it's kind of centralizing the power again, kind of like making, again, the idea of flag burning, once again, like people are going to have to question it, like whether they do it. And
not that it's been happening that much anyway. No.
It hasn't in thank God it hasn't, but it is getting definitely. It is happening when it's happening, so it's not like a complete non-existent issue, is what I'm trying to say. But the centralization of power in the Trump administration in the executive branch. I think that is what this really is all about, because we have seen this is not the first thing that he has tried to control over. He has tried to control the tariffs. He has tried to control what else? He just tried.
You think he's on firm ground with those tariffs?
Well.
I don't. Without regard to whether I think tariffs, if I thought they're a good idea, bad idea, this is not the debate I'm dipping my toe in. But the idea that we are in a national emergency, which is, as I understand, the statutory authority has the right to do these things in an emergency. We're not in any kind of emergency.
Well,
who are we kidding?
With the tariffs, yes. No.
The only caveat I would say, like if it was aimed at the chips in China, which we need for our national defense, like I can imagine certain thin slices of our trade picture, which I would say, well, this is actually an urgent matter, cars or
Trump is allowed to. The executive order does have power. I mean, the executive branch does have the power to insinuate tariffs, especially in these cases. And in the past, presidents have done so. And every single president that I could think of has had some sort of tariffs. Even Joe Biden had tariffs.
I know that. Well,
yeah. He kept the tariffs for the.
Is there a 50% tariff now on India?
Okay, this is when it becomes like a different argument. Now the argument is like, how much is too much? And that argument is very difficult, because when we see Trump at the very beginning of his like term, I believe it was April 1st, that's when Liberation Day was, he announced like tariffs on every single part of the world you can think of. Many of those tariffs did not come to fruition, but there was clear economic gain from that. We have gotten over $2.2 trillion in foreign direct investment, more than any other modern day president.
This is what I think. We have to. Nobody ever said everything that a dictator does is bad for his country, or is dumb, or cannot have good results. And I want to stipulate that there may be things that Trump does where I could see, the result has been good. It's effective. He's brought illegal crossings down at the border to.
But how is that a dictator? Why does that?
No. I'm saying I'm working backwards. Like, even if I were to say that his methods are illegal or unconstitutional, that doesn't mean I'm not recognizing certain good results. But we are ever so slowly getting inured to the, if I can use that word twice in a podcast, we're getting inured to the results of expediency over principle. And I have always had a soft spot for that. We talked about last week, like Thomas Jefferson bought Louisiana. He didn't have the authority to do it. Like, no one's thinking that was some sort of national.
Well,
disaster.
It's a question. It's not.
But it seems like Trump is on a full court press of testing the bounds of executive power, firing people, and each one of the things examined by itself, you could make the case is borderline whatever it is. But the sum total, if this precedent and this way of doing business becomes the norm of future American presidents, I'm 100% sure it's going to lead to disaster. We are getting away from the fact that we are supposed to have a country where the legislature is supposed to be in charge of much more than Donald Trump is allowing to. And I know the legislature is paralyzed and doesn't do anything, but still.
So yes and no to that question. I mean, to that point, I agree with you, and I know. Well, the main thing is that obviously Trump is testing the boundaries, but I don't think that's a threat to our country. I don't see that as a reason. Our Constitution is made. The whole purpose is to kind of give each branch as the power they do. It's not like there's no questioning here whether the president has the authority to do something or not. It's made by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decides whether the Constitution allows for something. However, definitely he is testing the boundaries of the executive branch, and he is definitely centralizing the power. And just a few.
And he's not the first one to do it, by the way. Cynically, when Biden forgave all student loans, when Obama legalized the Dreamers, these were examples of the same kind of thing. They knew they didn't have the power to do these things.
Of course,
and
but
they do them anyway.
Well, I don't believe that there's anything that Trump did. Well, actually, I don't think that Trump is doing something that he knows he doesn't have the power to do so. I think it's more of a question here. I don't think it's very obvious. However, I do think that centralizing the executive branch will hurt us in the future, not because it's going to pose a threat to our Constitution, but because it's going to give the next president the same exact power. It's going to give the next president after that even more power. So it's going to, bite Republicans back, and it's not going to end well. That's why I would be very careful if I were Trump to continue expanding and centralizing the power.
And this going after John Bolton. Now, of course, we don't know. I mean, it was approved there was a warrant approved by a judge. And there is that possibility that Bolton is actually, rightfully being investigated here. The standard would have to be, I said this to someone the other day, the standard would have to be that this is the kind of thing that the government would pursue even prior to 2016, let's say, but if Trump is doing this as an act of retribution, I just don't want to defend the indefensible. Okay, last thing, the election of Zoran, and we're going to see soon enough. And you would like to think that Trump wouldn't do this if he knew that in the end he was going to be exposed as John Bolton didn't have anything at all.
Of course,
but Trump.
Same thing with Letitia.
Trump doesn't
James.
care. Trump will do it because he knows it won't stick to him. The election of Zoran Mamdani. I've done in-depth research into his policies and would like to address his socialist agenda and its connection to anti-Semitism. This is the last thing we're going to deal with. Go ahead.
Yeah, so
I
think the most important thing to mention is that Zoran Mamdani in general is very, according to him now, is very pro-police force and very pro, the police, everything that he kind of retracted from his statements before he was obviously has tweets where he said he was anti-police, all of that stuff. But the charter, the platform, the political platform he sponsors and kind of abides by is the DSA charter, the Democratic Socialists of America charter. And after reading that, it's even more concerning than what Mamdani actually tweeted. Because number one, the charter says that their number one goal is to defund the police. They want to defund the police. So I don't think Mamdani would ever be able to redact that statement, because I truly believe if he sponsors and endorses a charter that says that, he believes that too. Not only that, but there's crazy things like, taking CCTV cameras out of schools. Now, I don't know why that would be beneficial. That doesn't make sense to me, but that's a part of the charter. Also, taking armed guards out of schools, I kind of understand that. But again, in neighborhoods where obviously there's high crime rates, then armed guards in schools can be very beneficial. And there has been a lot of studies. Not only that, but it gets even more crazy. It gets to the point where this charter, which was created years ago, has from the very beginning said that Israel was an apartheid state, all of that stuff, but also sponsored boycott BDS groups, boycott, divest, and sanction groups on Israel, which have been anti-Semitic. I mean, if you look at them, even a few of them, the big ones, are registered as a foreign terrorist organization by the U.S. government, which is crazy. And when we have a mayor who endorses such a charter, it's very concerning. It means that he not only will hurt the Jews, it's not going to be only the Jews that are going to suffer under his rule, but it's also going to be every other person in the city, because he will bring crazy policy. He will normalize the DSA charter. He will normalize socialist candidates being elected in the United States, and he's going to be the first of many.
Okay, so given his, I don't know if you've looked into this, if you know about it, you're only 17.
Believe me, I looked into everything.
Given his, I don't know, maybe you can give some of those same pills to Periel.
Which pills?
Like the Ritalin or whatever it is that he's taking that allows him to pay such close attention now when he spent a lifetime.
Unfortunately, they don't help if you don't have ADHD. They just get you addicted.
Oh, okay. Is that true?
Yeah, that's why it's a controlled substance.
No, are they sure it doesn't help you if you're?
No, the thing is, it helps you, but you lose. Then you kind of gain ADHD because you lose your ability to cognitively think, and you get addicted to a drug that kind of increases your ability. And what happens is that basically, without it, you end up not being able to think for yourself and not being able to concentrate for yourself. So it turns into a very bad situation. That's why it's actually a big issue college students are facing right now. The usage of
When I was in
stimulus.
college,
I
people
think-
used
okay,
to
wait.
snort Ritalin.
Okay, but
before
Mamdani.
tests, I'm serious.
So given the actual mechanisms for taking actions that the mayor has,
Perfect question.
what do you actually foresee? So, for instance, he can't defund the police.
Yeah, he's not.
But he can certainly affect the way police policies. He probably can take armed guards out of school. Like, so what do you see? Not worst case scenario, most likely scenario. If you were to go to sleep now with your narcolepsy and wake up 3 years from now in Mamdani's New York, what do you imagine is the most likely things you would see that will be different?
So there.
Don't exaggerate.
Yeah, of course.
Hyposomnia.
I don't believe there will be any immediate changes. I believe that the changes will be like we saw under de Blasio, where they kind of are. Obviously, if you look at it holistically, the city got a lot worse under de Blasio. It was not good. The crime rate spiked. I believe that is something realistic that would probably happen under Mamdani, but that's not the biggest threat, because that would mean Mamdani is just as bad as de Blasio, and I don't believe that. I believe he's worse. Yeah, we survived him. The threat I think Mamdani poses, the biggest threat he poses, is that he normalizes socialism. He normalizes the policies he stands for. And once we have a candidate that normalizes this, we're going to have not only Mamdani, but we'll have, I don't know, someone who is exactly like him just in Los Angeles. And it's going to go on and go on until there's going to be many cities throughout New York and the United States where there are socialist mayors who actually believe in this policy, and it's going to be normalized. And that poses a bigger threat. So it just starts by Mamdani getting elected. He's not the only one, but he's going to normalize it in the biggest city that holds the most amount of Jews. When we have an anti-Semitic mayor, then we're going to normalize anti-Semitism. So it's really just the issue.
Now, when you say he's anti-Semitic, I had this conversation with somebody last night. Do you believe he hates Jewish people, or has bigotry towards Jewish people, or do you think it's the Jews as a negative influence and a controlling influence in the world?
I think that it is the latter. I believe that he doesn't necessarily target, like, oh, if you're Jewish, I hate you immediately because you're just Jewish. But no, I think it's more of a bigotry. I don't know if bigotry is the right word, but, you know, seeing the Jewish elite doing so well and all of that, I think that kind of feeds in. Because I don't believe he's necessarily anti-Semitic as in he wants to kill all Jews. No, I believe he doesn't.
Well, kill is, you can be anti-Semitic without wanting to kill. Like you can be a racist without wanting to kill all blacks.
Well, yes, but he wants to.
You could think they're inferior. You could think that they shouldn't have the same rights. You don't want them in your neighborhood. You don't want to be friends with them. There's all sorts of shades of bigotry.
I think there's a sense of bigotry with Mamdani where he believes that the Jews have too much power or that they're too ingrained into society. That's what I believe. That's why he has like Jewish supporters, for example, that are like Jewish by race but not by religion, or like things like that. Because I don't believe, exactly how you said, there's different ways to be anti-Semitic, but when you don't condemn the Intifada, which was the killing of Jews, over 1,000 people, 1,000 civilians in both of the Intifadas died. When you have those events that you don't condemn and you acknowledge that for some people it means the killing of Jews, then you are effectively not condemning the killing of Jews for some people. And that is a big issue. And I think if you are there, then you are anti-Semitic. So I don't think it's a black and white thing. I can't just say, oh, he's an anti-Semite because he doesn't support Israel. No, I think it's more of a question of how he kind of thinks of the Jewish elite, the Zionist agenda, the like Jews as a whole, if that makes sense.
That's a disgusting thing, though, the quote-unquote Zionist agenda.
Exactly.
Like, what the fuck does that mean?
Of course.
Like, that's outrageous. It is. But you don't think so? You don't think that like somebody who's running for mayor to say something like the Zionist agenda?
He didn't say that. He's inferring that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he said that.
He would say that. He would say that. Look, this is more of his.
Listen, I'm not pro Mamdani. I'm just.
I'm just saying it's like this guy is. I think he's really dangerous.
Yes,
of
course.
So I'll ask you the same question. What do you actually mean by is dangerous?
I don't think the answer to the question that you asked Gregory, like, I don't think it really matters because I think the end result is the same, which is anti-Semitism becoming normalized. Like, this guy has had so many opportunities to take a stand and say something about how much anti-Semitism is going on, and he has not said a fucking word about it. Why not? Why not?
Well,
Surrounding yourself with anti-Zionist Jews, sorry, that's not it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I haven't even followed him that closely. I have a business in Manhattan, so I'm very worried about various things about city government here,
Yeah.
including very much police enforcement. If I look back on the BLM riots, De Blasio told the police to stand down when the riots.
that's an example.
It's an example of what somebody of that worldview will do. Kamala Harris wanted to bail out the rioters. Now, Andrew Cuomo actually was quite strong, and he blasted De Blasio for this. So it's not throughout the Democratic Party, but the Cuomo wing, the Mondani wing, seems to be ascendant, at least in our
Yes.
but not nationally. Democrats are like hemorrhaging voters nationally, but that doesn't, two things can happen at the same time.
Well, we see that Mamdani and the radical left in general is kind of taking over the party when we have people like AOC or Bernie Sanders who are Israel haters, self-described Israel haters, who think Israel is an apartheid state when they speak at the DNC prime time right before Kamala Harris gets on stage.
AOC
that
and
is a
Bernie
concern.
Sanders are not self-described Israel haters.
Of course, they say Israel is an apartheid state. If you say Israel is an apartheid state, you're a hater of Israel.
Unless you're saying that you like apartheid.
No, self-described. Yeah, you're inferring from the fact that they say Israel's an apartheid state. Now, I'm not sure if they say Israel's an apartheid state or the West Bank is an apartheid state.
They say Israel is an that is
Yeah, no, there's very shades to that. I just don't know specifically. But AOC actually, didn't I read? She actually didn't vote against some defensive weapons for Israel, where some other people did.
Well, AOC
wrong
also
about
endorses the same exact charter as Mamdani does.
No,
and
I believe that AOC probably hates Israel. I don't know about Bernie Sanders. I believe that
But
AOC probably
AOC
does.
knows about Israel.
You know how I am. I'm anal about this stuff. Self-described would imply that I
Fine,
could now
fair
quote
enough.
quote something to you where she describes herself.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
Yeah.
How much do you really think AOC knows about Israel? Because I've seen her do interviews where she gets tongue-tied the second a question is asked that even scratches like the...
I find her so hot. I don't care what.
That's the problem.
that's why she has votes.
Well, good luck.
That's
good
actually a
luck
good
with
example
that.
because we can get all hung up on Israel, but she also was instrumental.
Why are you fucking laughing back
Because
there?
she was instrumental in seeing to it that Amazon didn't open its major hub here, and this is could be a catastrophic decision or catastrophic outcome. Like the future's supposed to happen in New York. The notion that you're going to New York is going to continue to grow and be the center of the universe that it's always been, while at the same time eschewing and chasing out all the industries of tomorrow is stupid.
Yeah.
Obviously, Amazon and things like it are the future.
Yeah.
So where do we want them?
And look, if you look at
Want them in New York.
Mamdani's, of course, if you look at Mamdani's agenda, and what I mean by that, look at his legislative history, because he's currently an assemblyman.
Yeah.
If you look at that, then you would really see what he can do, because he has sponsored bills that included $50,000 in environmental taxes on small businesses in New York.
This is
So you'll have fun with that.
Who cares about his anti-Semitism?
Yeah, I
right?
mean, these are just like anti-Semitism is an issue. Of course, it's an issue. It's, in my opinion, the biggest issue with Mamdani, but also it's an issue for every New Yorker. No matter whether you're an anti-Semite or not, it's going to be an issue for you because socialism does not work. We saw in the USSR, Venezuela, Cuba, every other socialist state that existed, socialism does not work.
of course not.
And I don't know why this has to be explained to people. It does not. I mean, this is an unfortunate reality that we have in New York City. I can't believe it.
But AOC's hot, so who cares?
Did you see that music video she made when she was at BU? All right, Gregory. Now you don't live in Manhattan.
I live right outside Manhattan.
Okay, so we're very happy to meet you. You come downstairs now, maybe, and have you're not old enough to drink even, but you can have a.
Right here.
Are you kosher or something?
I am kosher.
Oh, brother. Okay, well, you can have a water and some celery stalks.
Thank you.
You're not wearing a kippah,
No, I don't wear a kippah, especially in the city.
Oh, but you wear one generally.
No. Well, it's depending on the day.
You're more comfortable with one or without one?
If I remember to keep it on, I keep it on. But most of the time I take it off just for literal, when I put on.
Do you feel it undercuts your persuasiveness?
Yeah,
that
it's a big factor in why people listen or don't listen to you, in my opinion, especially when you talk about things like Israel.
But Ben Shapiro actually...
That's why I want to be like Ben Shapiro when I grow up.
Yeah, he wears it, and I think it's all right.
Well, I think he gets a lot of criticism for being a Jew and talking about Israel. He is called a bigot not just him, but a lot of people. Exactly like Alan Dershowitz, for example. He is very pro-Jewish on the outside, but he also discusses Israel as a topic. So he is called also a bigot for that.
Was it Immanuel Kant had this thing about the categorical imperative, you should do what you would want everybody to do or something like that. I say you should wear it.
I agree with you. And
because if you don't wear it, you have to imagine that everybody like you would stop wearing it.
I agree with you.
And that's an outcome that you would think would be horrible.
I 100%
so you're kind
agree.
of a freeloader. And I don't wear it because I'm not observant like you are. But more power to you for being observant, and I think you should wear it. I'm not criticizing.
No. I actually agree with you. When I criticize myself for not wearing it, it's because it's mostly a comfort thing also. I just forget sometimes. But I could tell you right now that I will be making bigger efforts to wear it because I actually 100% agree with you.
Yeah. Okay. Nice to meet
Thank you so much.
Where can everybody find you?
You can find me on my X, just at Gregory Lyakhov, or I don't know, just search my name up. You'll see my articles.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.